Pete White Show at a special time on Sunday night, March the 8th, 9 p.m. Thanks for taking time out of your evening, to listen to the show. Tonight is a very, very important show for me. It's my confession. And I need to go back to the fall of 2013 where the history began, so please bear with me. Back on approximately September the 3rd, 2013, which I believe was the day after Labor Day, I got home from work and I brought the mail into my house like I normally do, and I sat down at my kitchen table, and my ex was making dinner behind me at the kitchen, at the island, in the kitchen counter, and I sat down and read the mail, and I received divorce papers from her in the mail that day. And then 2 days later, which I believe was Thursday, September the 5th, 2013, some deputy sheriffs came to my house and served me with PFA papers, which are protection from abuse papers. And the paper said that I must leave my home in 20 minutes. I had 20 minutes to gather up my things before I was forced to leave my home. And I didn't even get an opportunity to read the papers during that time because I needed to gather up stuff because they said I couldn't stay at my home. Eventually, later on in that night, I did read the papers. I noticed that there was no allegation of physical contact or abuse in those papers. It just said that my ex was afraid of me. And a hearing was scheduled like 10 days later on September the 15th of 2013. Now keep in mind, 2013, that's a year and a half ago. It's 2 Septembers ago. I went to the hearing on September the 15th of 2013, and I waited for 3 hours at the courthouse in the morning, and I never did have a hearing. One of the judge's law clerk came out and told me that the hearing was going to be continued to another time, after I waited there for 3 hours. And it was continued to October, the following month. So keep in mind that all of this time, I was not allowed in my own house. And that I got these papers 2 days after I got the papers for divorce. And, what I was told by a family law attorney is that he suspected that this was a ploy in the divorce. Getting a PFA was a ploy in the divorce. Now, I went to law school, but I was a civil defense attorney. I had never done a family law case in my life, so I really didn't have any experience or know anything about family law. I was just following what I was told, that this PFA was probably a ploy in the divorce. But anyhow, so it was continued until October of 2013, and at the October 2013 hearing, prior to that, my attorney and my ex's attorney made an agreement that if I agreed to the PFA for 1 year, with no findings of fact, that I would do that as long as I could contact my ex for custody arrangements with my children, and if I got exclusive possession of my house. And that was agreed to by my ex, the judge, Judge Joy McCoy, and myself. And my ex was given 2 months to move out of my house while I had to live somewhere else during those 2 months that Judge Joy McCoy gave her to move out of my house. So she moved out of my house prior to the 2 months because I believe the date was October the 9th when Judge McCoy signed the PFA order. And remember, there were no findings of fact. It was just I was agreeing to it because obviously she didn't want to be with me anymore, and I could still contact her for custody arrangements with the kids, so I could still see my boys. I have 4 sons; they're all in school, and but I would get to be back in my house. So she was given 2 months to move out, and prior to those 2 months, she moved out of the house in the middle of November. I believe it was around November the 15th of 2013. Then, I believe like 2 weeks later, on November the 28th of 2013, my ex got a DUI arrest, and she eventually pled guilty to that driving under the influence arrest. So she was convicted of driving under the influence of alcohol 2 weeks after she moved out of my home it was like around the end of November of 2013. And then after that time, my ex called the police about a dozen times claiming that I violated the PFA, and the police contacted me some of those times with a phone call, but they never, they told me that I didn't violate the PFA any of those times, but they had received phone calls from my ex saying that I did violate the PFA. Then my ex made a motion in the summer of 2014 that she no longer wanted me to be able to contact her for custody arrangements, that she wanted no contact at all anymore. And so she made a motion for that, and then Judge McCoy changed our agreement, because our agreement was that I would be able to contact her for custody arrangements, and now Judge McCoy unilaterally changed the PFA to no contact, which was not the thing that we agreed to. She just did that all on her own. And then she also gave sole custody of my 4 boys to my ex, despite the fact that she had a DUI conviction, and despite the fact that we had no hearing about the children and who they were going to be with in any custody arrangement. That wasn't any part of this. And she also unilaterally extended the PFA a year to October the 15th, because the original PFA was supposed to run out on October of 2014, and Judge McCoy unilaterally changed it to October of 2015. She extended it for 1 full year without being asked, without any motions or anything. She just did that all on her own on July 31st of 2014. Then, after that occurred, once again I got a phone call from a policeman one day, shortly before school started, saying that my wife was complaining my ex was complaining that I violated the PFA again. They called me up and told me that I didn't violate the PFA, but that I needed to be careful, because she obviously keeps on calling the police. And I told him I appreciated the warning, and we hung up. Then in late August, maybe about August the 26th, I was detained one evening for an alleged PFA violation, which is contempt. It's not a crime. It's not a misdemeanor or a felony. It was a PFA violation for contempt. And I was taken to a district justice, James Carn. And despite the fact that I've never been in trouble in my life before, and I've lived here for 37 years, and I own a house here, District Justice Carn set my bail at $25,000 straight cash. And this was on a Tuesday night. Now, of course, it's impossible to come up with $25,000 cash, after 5 p.m. when the banks are closed. So, I didn't make bail until the very next day, so I spent the night in jail before I made bail the next day, which would have been a Wednesday. And I was out of jail on Wednesday and went to work, and I went to work on Thursday. And then Thursday, at about 5:30 p.m., on the Thursday before Labor Day, I was served with papers from the DA's office that said that they were making a motion that I needed to wear an ankle GPS monitor for my bail. So in addition to the $25,000 straight cash bail that I already posted, the DA's office was asking that I be placed on supervised bail, which means you have to wear an ankle GPS monitor, so they can see where you are at all times. And I was served with those papers at around 5:30 p.m. on a Thursday, and the hearing was the very next day on Friday at 1 p.m. And I called up my attorney, and my attorney was not available to be at the hearing at Friday at 1 p.m. And so I had to go to the hearing by myself with no attorney. And I went to the hearing, and decided after the hearing, which I was unrepresented at because my attorney couldn't make it, and I asked Judge McCoy if we could if I could see her in chambers with the prosecuting attorney, the DA's office attorney, and we could work something out, or if I could get a continuance because my attorney can't make it, and she denied both of those requests and said, no, we're having the hearing without your attorney. So we had this hearing, and Judge McCoy decided that I needed to wear this ankle GPS as part of my bail. Now, this was on the Friday before Labor Day in the afternoon, and I was told that I was going to go over to the jail to get and get a GPS put on, and I would be out for Labor Day weekend. And as it turned out, I went over to the jail on that Friday, and I was sat in a holding cell all afternoon, and then was admitted to the jail, and I was there Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, which was Labor Day, and then on Tuesday, I had an evaluation, and then on Wednesday, they did a home inspection, and on Thursday, I was released. So I was in jail for a week. I was supposed to be out on $25,000 bail, but I was in jail for a week with an ankle because they needed to put an ankle monitor on, and I guess they couldn't do it until a week later. So then, around September the 8th, we had a hearing for the PFA violation, alleged, and it was alleged that I opened my van door, that my ex was not in the van. She had parked right next to my car. There was a fence, and she was out on a baseball field. And they said that I violated the PFA by opening a van door, and then when my ex yelled to me to get away from the van, I said back to where I can see my kids. And Judge McCoy said that those two things, opening the van door and responding when my wife yelled at me, that was a violation. And I ended up paying a $300 fine, being sentenced to 1 month in like Cumming County Jail, and 5 months probation with an ankle monitor. And I ended up spending 36 days in jail, and then 5 months probation with an ankle monitor that expired on January the 15th. Then in December of 2014, I was detained again for another alleged PFA violation. And Judge Gray was the judge they took me to for the bail. And Judge Gray set my bail fairly at $2,000, not $25,000, $2,000, and gave me time to get that taken care of right away, so I didn't have to go to jail. So I made bail for $2,000 that same afternoon, and I told my attorney that these were bogus charges, so he made a motion for discovery, to have Judge McCoy recuse herself, and to have sanctions against the DA's office, because DA Eric Linhart's office, was charging me with something that didn't occur. We never received this discovery. Judge McCoy did not recuse herself. There were no sanctions, but the charges were dropped. Now, a point there to make, which I've been saying for 2 months, is we have these district magistrates that are former policemen, and Karn sets my bail at $25,000 cash when I've never been in trouble in my life, and Judge Gray sets my bail at $2,000. Now, Judge Gray is obviously an attorney. He went to law school and studied the law. Anyhow, the charges were dropped, and then in February of this year, all the judges recused themselves from my case. So I guess Judge Butts, the president judge, decided, hey, Judge McCoy should have recused herself before, and not only is she recused, but now we're going to recuse all the judges. Okay? Then in March of this year, I hadn't seen my youngest son, Giancarlo, since August of 2014, which is six months. And my ex had kept my second son, Santino, away from me since December of 2014, which is 3 months. And I've been writing letters and calling her attorney so I could see my two youngest boys. And I haven't gotten any response to any of my calls or any of my letters. And of course, I cannot contact my ex because of the PFA. I was not supposed to contact her. Now, I could see my two older boys because my two older boys have cell phones. And my oldest son, Salvatore, I could call him or text him on his cell phone and let him know, hey, let's get together to do this or to do that. And he would say yes, and we would get together to do whatever we need to do. And then the same with my second son, Giancarlo, because once again, he has a cell phone, and I could say, hey, we're going to do this or do that. But even if I asked them to give their cell phone to their younger brothers if they were in the same place on the phone, I couldn't make arrangements with my two youngest sons, who were 11 and 7, or who were 10 and 6 at the time, because, even if, they still had to check with their mother about, hey, what they could do. So there was really no way of making arrangements with my two youngest kids. So this month, on Tuesday of this past week, March the 3rd, at 1:13 p.m., I sent a text. I took a huge chance because I thought that, hey, I haven't seen my youngest son, who's 7 years old now, in 6 months since August, because my ex has been keeping him away from me because the PFA, I guess, made it possible for me not to really contact my two youngest kids. And then my second son I hadn't seen in 3 months, and I thought, you know what, I need to do the right thing here as a dad. And what good is being able to do things if you can't see your kids, especially when they live in the same town as you? So on Tuesday, March the 3rd, this past Tuesday at 1:13 p.m., I sent a text to my ex that read, I would like to discuss a few things with you, and your attorneys never get back to me. Please. And I thought, and I knew that was technically violating the PFA because I wasn't supposed to contact her, by phone or in person or anything like that. But I was at my house, when I sent that text. And I don't know where she was, but I assumed that she was at work because it was during business hours, so we were nowhere near one another. And all I wanted to do was get an opportunity to see my kids. And that evening, I had already made plans to go out with my second oldest son, Giancarlo, by calling and texting him, the days before. We were going to go out to dinner at 6:15 at Secura Buffet. I was going to pick him up. So I picked him up at 6:15 on Tuesday, March the 3rd, knowing that I had technically violated the PFA because I wanted to see my younger kids and was hoping for a response that, hey, maybe my ex didn't realize that I was trying to get into, that I made many attempts with her attorneys to see the kids. Maybe her attorneys didn't tell her. And I'm very sorry that I sent the text now, because she obviously isn't interested in letting me see the kids. But I thought that I was doing the proper thing as a father at the time because I want to see my two little guys, and I haven't seen them in quite some time. My ex's attorney for letting her know that I've been requesting to see them. And I did know it was a technical violation of the order, but I thought that it was worth it for a chance to see my boys. And I'm very sorry that I had to violate that order to take the chance to possibly see my boys. But I thought that it was the right thing to do. I don't think that it's appropriate the PFA to take a chance to see my kids. And it was very difficult, but it was a difficult choice to make. Anyway, so I picked up Giancarlo at 6:15. We went to Secura Buffet for dinner. And then later on, I found out, according to the court papers that I received, that at 6:30 p.m., once we were at Secura Buffet, that my ex called the police to report the texts that I had sent earlier in the day. Now, she's allowed to call me and she's allowed to text me, which she has done, but I am not allowed to contact her, according to the order. And we were finishing up eating, my son Giancarlo kept on getting texts, and the texts were from my ex saying, "Hey, when are you coming home? When are you coming home? Aren't you done eating?" And it was, he had told me when I picked him up that I had to have him back there by 7:45, but he started getting texts probably about 7:15, saying, "Hey, don't go to your dad's house. When are you going to come? When are you coming back? Are you done eating?" And I told him I would have him back there way before 7:45, so no problem. Let her know. And now I can call the landline at my ex's house. However, I suspect that she turned off the ringer because when I call there, there's no answer. Anyways, after I dropped Carlo off at approximately 7:30 back to his mother's house, and then at approximately 8:30, 2 police cars and 4 policemen came to my house to place me in custody. And they took me down to the courthouse, they took me down to they took me down to City Hall where the police station is and just held me there until they got a arraignment hearing in front of District Justice Kemp, who's also a former policeman, and he set my bail at $75,000 and straight cash, not 10% bond. He's straight cash, $75,000 for sending this text message because I wanted to see my kids. He never really gave me a chance to say anything other than to answer his questions, basically yes or no, and to tell him my address and things like that. And he said it said on the paperwork that I was not eligible for supervised bail. And the paperwork was signed, by the way, the paperwork for the arrest was signed by DA Eric Linhart. It wasn't signed by an assistant DA. It was signed by the actual DA of Lycoming County, Eric Linhart. I would never want to hurt the mother of my children or the person who's going to be primarily taking care of my children until they're in their 20s. My youngest son is 7, and this whole thing is absolutely crazy. He has 18 more years of us taking care of him probably if he keeps on going to school for as long as I did, which is a definite possibility. And so anyways, as I said, the paperwork that the police had was signed by the actual DA, Eric Linhart, not by one of his assistants. He made the call. Then I spent Wednesday in jail, and then Thursday I made bail and was released right after lunch. And on Friday I was at my house doing some work because I'm self-employed. And at 3:40 p.m. I got a knock on my door, and there were 2 deputy sheriffs at my door. And they came to my house, and I went to the door, and they served me with some papers that there was, and they told me there was a hearing at 4 o'clock today. Now this was 3:40 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, and the hearing was at 4, which was in 20 minutes. The papers they served me with were 53 pages long, and once again they were signed by DA Eric Linhart, and he was asking the court to put me in jail without bail until Tuesday at 10 a.m. for a hearing. So he was saying that, hey, $75,000 bail was not enough bail. That we need to treat this guy like a mass murderer and give him no bail at all. Like, give him the $75,000 back, and he's not allowed out. That he needs to stay in jail until the hearing. And I was obviously, surprised that I had to go to a hearing in 20 minutes and that I didn't even get a chance to read the 53 pages before the hearing. But, I wanted to do the right thing, and, excuse me a second. I wanted to do the right thing, so I was prepared to go to the hearing. I wasn't prepared to go, but I was going to go to the hearing, and my attorney got to the hearing before I did. This time he was available, and, so I guess on such short notice, and he asked for a continuance, and the judge denied the continuance, meaning he asked if we could have the hearing at another time because he didn't have time to prepare. And I didn't even have a chance to read the 53 pages, obviously, because I don't live right next to the courthouse. I live in Old Lycoming Township. So then he called me and said, hey, I need to come down there. And so I came down there, and I guess while I was driving down there, he renewed his motion for a continuance, and once again it was denied. In other words, to have the hearing at another time so we could prepare, and that was denied. And the DA would not budge off the fact that that he didn't want any bail at all. He wanted me to have to stay in jail until the hearing, which I don't understand, because even people that get murdered, even murderers sometimes have bail set for them. It's just set very, very high. And if you remember from my first show, a woman got hit with a hammer in the head and had to go to the hospital. And of course, she had a District Justice Page, who was not a former policeman, and gave her bail of $2,500, which seems a lot more appropriate. Excuse me again. So anyhow, so here, the bail was $75,000. It said I wasn't eligible for supervised bail, and the DA's office, Eric Linhart's office, was not budging on the fact that they wanted it to be no bail at all. I had to stay in prison until the hearing. So the judge suggested, how about supervised bail, which would mean I'd have to wear an ankle-monitored GPS until my hearing on Tuesday at 10 a.m. at courtroom number 2. And, my attorney came out and said, hey, the judge suggested that you get supervised bail. They said that you can just walk right over to the prison, and they can put the ankle monitor on. You'll be out of there in 45 minutes. And he said it's either that or my attorney had to be somewhere. It was either that or that they would try to find a public defender, and as soon as the public defender arrived, they would have a hearing. And I didn't think the public defender was going to be able to read 53 pages of stuff and give me a very good representation, for a hearing. So I figured I really was left with no choice. So I decided, hey, I don't mind the supervised bail, because at least I'll be out of there. And, so anyhow, so the judge, gave me supervised bail, which means I didn't have to go to prison. They just put an ankle monitor on me. And that was probably a good example of why policemen should not be elected as district magistrates, because, District Magistrate Kemp said I wasn't eligible for supervised bail. And as it turned out, the judge, an actual judge, a county judge, said not only am I eligible, but she suggested that I have supervised bail. Because my attorney was saying, hey, $75,000 is way, way more than enough. That's an awful lot of money. So anyways, so I have a hearing in courtroom number 2 in Lycoming County Courthouse, which is Judge Gray's courtroom, but we're going to have a senior visiting judge from Lewisburg who is going to do the case. She's going to be the judge on the case, because all the judges in Lycoming County recused themselves. Even Judge McCoy, who originally said she wasn't recusing herself, but the president, Judge Butts, did the right thing and made sure that she did recuse herself. And like I said, that motion was 53 pages long. And now we're given an opportunity to prepare for a hearing on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And by the way, the hearing on Tuesday at 10 o'clock in courtroom number 2, which is Judge Gray's courtroom, it's on the second floor of the courthouse in the back corner on the right-hand side. That hearing is open to the public if anybody wants to see how things work at the courthouse. You can go down and check things out. Because as I've been saying for 2 months, I don't think things are working properly in Lycoming County. I mean, we have magistrates that are just rubber stamps for the police because they're former policemen, and they're rubber stamps for the DA's office because they formerly worked with the DA's office. We have a district attorney that is more concerned about somebody who sent a text message to someone who wants to see their 2 youngest children than he is about people getting murdered. Because we have an unsolved murder, and he's going to spend all day Friday with doing a 53-page motion. And we have, a man in Loyalsock Township who was murdered, and no one has had to stand for. And we know, who was killed, I should say, a man in Loyalsock Township who was killed, and we have no jury or no judge judge and jury are judging whether that person is innocent or guilty, the DA just made the call that I guess she's not guilty. So he's more concerned about a text message that was not threatening, like it's supposed to be a protection from abuse. And I don't see how that text message that's on your screen right now was abusive at all. I mean, I'm at my house right now. I'm doing the show from my house, and I don't see how that text message is protection from abuse. Is that abusive to want to see your two youngest kids? Also, I forgot, there was another thing that I wanted to mention here, that this does seem kind of personal with Linhart, because I mentioned I didn't think he was doing a very good job, and that I think that we should vote for a different DA in the election. Now, I do understand that it was against the order to send the text, okay, but I will never do it again. I will never ever do that again. I was taking a chance, and I knew I was. I just wanted to see my two youngest kids. I didn't know if my wife's attorneys were letting her know that I've been trying to see them for months now, and I just wanted to see whether she understood what she was doing by keeping them away from me. You know what I mean? That she understood that they were being kept away from me, not because I wanted them away from me, but because she may not have been getting the information. But as it turned out, apparently maybe she was getting the information, and she meant to have them kept away from me, which I don't think is appropriate either. But it definitely was wrong to send the text. I should not have. Well, I shouldn't say I should not have done that because it violated the order. It wasn't against the law, obviously, because, like I said, there was no threat there. There was no abuse there. But I just wanted to try to see my kids. Now, there was one other thing that I left out here, too, which nobody told me about until I got the ankle monitor put on, and I'm sure this happens to other people, that when I went over to the jail to get the ankle monitor put on, you have to sign a bunch of things, a bunch of requirements. And one of the requirements is you have to pay $50 to put the ankle monitor on, and then you got to pay $16 a day to wear the ankle monitor. Now, nobody mentioned that to me at the courthouse. That was just when I got over to the prison. That's when I found that out. I didn't think that was going to happen because nobody mentioned it to me. I thought, and I wonder how many other people that occurs to, that you get over there and nobody mentions it, and all of a sudden you find out, hey, you got to pay $16 a day, which is, what is that? 160. That's $480 a month for a 30-day month, plus a $50 hookup fee. Now, in my case, I'm glad to pay it. That's no problem, because I would much rather pay the $50 to hook up and the $16 a day and be out of prison until Tuesday than be in prison. But I just wonder about other people, who that happens to, that might not be something that they're willing to do or want to do. So I asked them, what if I don't sign this? Because I just wanted to find out. And they said, well, if I don't sign that I'm going to pay the $50 and $16 a day, then they'll have to take me around to the back of the prison and commit me to the prison until Tuesday. So I asked them, I said, hey, I'm going to sign it, but it's going to be under duress. And I said, can I write anything else on here? And they said, yeah, you can write whatever you want as long as you sign your name. So I signed my name, and I put in parenthesis under duress. But like I said, I'm very sorry that this happened. I will never let it. It will never happen again. I just wanted to make sure that my ex was the one who was keeping the children away from me, because I didn't think that it was her. And I figured that, hey, if she texted back to me and said, no, I don't want to talk, then I do know that she's the one keeping me away from them. And if she texted me back and said, yes, that I do want to talk, then maybe I could tell her, hey, I need to, I want to see the kids. I mean, my two youngest ones, I never get to see them. And it turned out to not be the right thing to do, I guess. But I just wanted to see my kids. I mean, I just was trying to do what was the best thing. I thought I was being a devoted father. I wanted to do what was best for the kids. Now, hey, we have a couple minutes left here. I know we ran over. We are going to do at least 5 minutes of anyone who wants to text. I've gotten some texts. I got some texts, and you can keep on texting to anyone who wants to. 570-244-6600. 570-244-6600. Send any texts, and I will respond to any questions that you have or any concerns that you have. We are going to go over a little bit today because of this. Now, the first text I have here, it says, Hey, Peter, don't really like you, but I respect you for saying you're sorry. I would never thought you would ever say that word. Good luck Tuesday, Adam. Well, Adam, I appreciate the fact that you respect me, because that's much more important than if you like me. And also, people should use the word that they're sorry. Yeah, I may come across, obviously I probably come across as being, pretty sure of myself and confident and even arrogant at times, which I understand. But because of those things, that doesn't mean that I'm not sorry for things when I do them wrong. When I do something that's wrong, I'm willing to admit it. And in this case, I took a chance knowing that I was violating the order, and I'm very sorry that I did that. I had to do that, or that I did that, but I did it because I thought that I had a chance of seeing my kids, and I thought that, what good is all this other stuff that I have if I can't see my two youngest boys? I can only see my two older ones. Okay, I got another text here. Like I said, 570-244-6600. This was interesting. I can't believe your wife parked right next to you. She provoked you. I thought the story was different until now. Thanks for sharing. Well, that's right. Yeah, the first time that when I actually got like they said, I violated the PFA was I was at my son's baseball practice, and my ex came and parked my van, which I owned at the time, right next to my car. And she knew it was my car because I have a convertible, and it's pretty obvious, that she would know my car since I've had it for years. And then she got out of the car and walked onto the baseball field to talk to my son, who was on the field. It was during practice. That was a pretty odd thing to do, but that's what she did. And I was behind home plate at the time, and I walked out toward my car, which the van was parked right next to it. And when I was walking there, I thought I saw my son Giancarlo in the van, so I opened So I went to open the door to the van to say hello to Giancarlo, and when I opened the door, Giancarlo wasn't there. It was my wife's nephew, Izzy. But my son Santino was in the back seat, so I said hello to Santino, and she yelled at me, "Hey, get away from the car!" And I turned around and said, "Hey, I'm allowed to see my kids." And then I got in my convertible, which was parked right next door, and I drove away. I had to go to a meeting, and somehow I didn't realize that was a violation at the time, because I thought I just needed to stay away from her, which I was doing. I didn't have any contact with her, I didn't think. But apparently, Judge McCoy thought that was contact, and that's what she said. And I think I have two more texts here. Next one says, "I respect you, Peter. Wow, you sound humble, and owning up means a lot. You're still a prick, though." This one isn't signed. You know what? I can understand why you would think that I'm a prick. I mean, I have no problem with that. The idea here is I wanted to, confess the story out there to what happened to me, let you know what's going on, let everyone know that I'm very sorry, and that I do think there needs, just as I said for the last 2 months, there needs to be some changes around here. There needs to be some changes with the district, with the magistrates, the district magistrates. There needs to be some changes in the legal system, and there needs to be some changes with the DA, who is more concerned about a personal vendetta against me because I've said some negative things about him than he seems to be worried about people who are getting killed or murdered in Lycoming County and the other unsolved things in Lycoming County. I mean, he's the head guy. Here, I got another one here. It says, "Sounds like a pathetic misuse of power and taxpayers' dollars. I feel very sad for your children, Pete, who are the real victims. I love you, so keep up the good work. Shame the devil and tell the truth, Robin." Thank you, Robin. That's right. I mean, I've always told the truth. And like I said, this time I did something that was against the order. I'm owning up to it. I do think that my children are the victims here because, number one, the two youngest ones are being kept away from me, and I think that hurts children to be kept away from their father. Number two is that the maximum sentence for this violation of the PFA is 6 months in prison and a $1,000 fine. And if I spend 6 months in prison, then obviously my children are not, I'm not going to be able to pay child support while I'm in prison. And so that's obviously going to hurt them. I won't be able to pay support for the children. They won't be able to see me. And then I think some other consequences that people probably don't think about. If I'm in prison for 6 months, my children are going to have a possibility of losing their home because, if I don't pay the mortgage for 6 months, it could be foreclosed on. So thank you very much, Robin. I appreciate that. I appreciate the love, too, as well. I really do. Actually, it's choking me up a little bit. And I appreciate any support from anybody out there. And also those of you who don't think I'm very nice, like even when someone called me a name there, I appreciate the fact, that you respected what I had to say and that you're listening to the show. I think that what happened in my particular case is over the last 2 months, I've been saying that, hey, there needs to be some changes around here. We need to have a different mayor, that does a little better job with the police force. We need to have a different DA, who does a better job of fighting crime and the drug problem and the heroin problem in Williamsport. And, that the system needs to be adjusted a little bit so that men and fathers aren't, put through the ringer this way. And it turns out that all those things in this last week came back and were proven by how I was treated. And I'm sure other people are treated this way, and that's why I wanted to speak out about it. So that hopefully once people hear my story, they'll get angry and they'll say, geez, I don't want anyone else to ever have to go through that. Because I can handle it, because I'm a 48-year-old man, so I can handle this stuff in my life. But some other people might not be able to handle that as well, and they need, people need to know. I got one more text here, and this is the last one. It says, never in my life I would have thought you would say you did something you should not have done. Thanks for being a man today. Good luck, Frank. Frank, I appreciate it. I think part of being an adult, man or woman, because as you know, I think that men and women should be treated exactly equally, is admitting when you make a mistake. And I obviously made a mistake. I should not have violated the order, and I knew that I was violating the order. I just hope that people understand that my reason for violating that order and knowing it is I just wanted to see my 2 youngest kids who have been being kept away from me by my ex. And I didn't think it was fair that I couldn't see them. Okay, so it's been about 40 minutes now instead of 30. We've gone over by 10 minutes. And I'm going to give people about 20 seconds to send any more texts. Otherwise, I'm going to sign off here. I got to check one last place here. If there's any questions out there, let me know. I'm going to give you another 10 seconds here to text me. Okay. Okay, thank you very much for listening tonight. I don't have any more texts. Also, you can go to my Pete White's Facebook page or the Pete White Show Facebook page if you have any questions that you think of later on tonight. I hopefully will have an opportunity to answer them tomorrow. And as I said, I would love anyone's support who's available. I know it's during working hours, but anyone who's available on Tuesday morning, this coming Tuesday, March the 10th at 10 a.m., courtroom number 3, which is on the second floor in the corner in the back of the courthouse. Anyone wants to see about how how this case turns out? Because if I am sentenced to jail, I obviously will not be on the air next Sunday. If I'm on the air, that means I'm not in jail. And if I'm not on the air, then it means I was sentenced to jail. And I know that my understanding from my attorney is that the DA, Eric Linhart, has made this personal and wants me to be in jail for the maximum, which is 6 months, for sending that text that was on your screen all day. Thanks very much, everyone. I hope you have a great evening, and I will see you. Thank you very much.